I think that particular story is phenomenal because it's the circle of life, right? So I'm gonna tell the listener a particular story about you that kind of mimics exactly what you said. I mean, back when you were younger, you were really big into baseball. You fell in love with baseball. You learned how to throw, under a branch. I think that was the story.
Yeah.
And that branch grew. You started throwing like underhanded pitches into where coaches were like, "Oh my God, like who are you and where have you been hiding?"
Yeah.
And then you had an accident, and that arm kind of ruined your career, which is kind of what you're depicting right now, right? I mean, you're saying that you're premium, you were jumping forward, you were moving forward, and then the irony is that is your arm is the reason why you had to leave the military.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of, it really is, I guess, when you look at it like that, a full depiction around it. It's funny that story. It's like, man, you actually did read the book. It's funny that story. You didn't realize it in the time. Like I went from
Yeah,
being a decent pitcher to a phenomenal pitcher
yeah.
over a summer because of a damn branch that grew over my yard where I was practicing. Um, and then, yeah, you circle forward now and it kind of, another uniform got taken from that injury. And not the funny part, the crazy part is just like I didn't know that branch was there changing the
Mhm,
arm angle when I was pitching, I have no idea what injured my arm.
mhm.
No clue. And I talk about it a little bit, but everybody's like, oh, what happened? What was the operation? I mean, I got so beat up over there, and you have to think 15 years of it. So SWAT and doing operations, and every 4 days with the Green Berets, we were doing operations. So I don't know when my arm was actually hurt. I just came back, tried to do a push up, dislocated my thumb, and everything went numb. So like I don't know the catalyst attached to what happened, and it's kind of crazy when you put it conceptually like that. It's like I have no clue what hurt it. I just know it hurts, and it doesn't feel good half the time. And a lot of people thought I was no longer worth a darn after I lost the use of that arm.
I think it's crazy because I mean, obviously, you're coming from a stubborn upbringing, right? You're coming from a relentless dad, and I forgot where it was in your book, but you talked about like right around when you was 21, it was something about being around toxic people that weren't able to help themselves or they didn't want to help themselves. But obviously, you're the opposite end, right? I mean, you're more than willing to help yourself, but in the moments that you're down, it may seem to you that you're not helping yourself. I want you to kind of talk to that because again, the listener may be someone that's in the business right now and they may be hitting a hurdle, right? And that hurdle, they may be pushing, they may be doing everything they think is correct. And then they're like inches away from actually getting that level of success, but then they get knocked back down. And if you've been knocked down at least a dozen times in your life, so I want you to talk to that and I want you to explain how did you push through and conquer those things as they came up.
Whew. Um, I can say all the catchy stuff, right? You work 20 years to become an overnight success, and I feel like I'm still not there. You can talk about the military loves acronyms. So FAIL is an acronym for first attempt in learning. I can talk about all the catchy stuff, right? The reality of it is, man, I stopped ignoring those pieces where I feel down. That's something that I really had to learn the hard way. Because again, you compartmentalize it. If you feel like garbage and you're like, oh, I just screwed this up, and you're down on yourself, you're beating yourself up. We are always going to be our worst critic, right? We're always going to be the harshest person that deals with ourselves, and that negative self-talk will destroy every piece of progress you're working on, right? And what I had to recognize was like I ignored that for so long, but it's still there. Just because you ignore it doesn't mean it goes away,
Yeah.
right? Just because you end up at the bottom of a bottle of bourbon doesn't mean you don't wake up the next day with the hangover and the same damn problem you're dealing with. So really sitting down and feeling what you're feeling. Like don't ignore the feelings. Don't ignore like, oh man, I'm really frustrated right now as a business owner. And I really hate that I'm, just overdrafting my bank account. Can't tell you how many times that's happened, and not that long ago, right? Or you lost a client, or something happens where it just always feels like a damn setback, and you can't really get over the hill, right? Um, Sit there and feel it. Don't ignore it. Don't just keep grinding and put your head, down and keep beating your head against the wall. Because a lot of times we have to realize is there are a lot of ways around that wall. You can go over, under, around. Like there's so many ways. You don't have to keep beating your head against the same wall. But if your head's in the trenches and you never take a second to pick your head up, you might not see the other avenues that are present to you. If you're sitting there beating yourself up over perceived failures, you're never going to take the time to take a step back and embrace that learning opportunity, right? You're never going to embrace what just happened? why the hell did it just happen? And how can I, one, keep that from happening again? But two, how can I leverage this into success in the future? And that it was the biggest shift for me, is leveraging things for success in the future. And that's where a lot of the positivity, both in personal and in business, has really started moving forward.
Hmm.